We get the good professor on, Glenn Antizzo, professor of political science, Mississippi College, about ready to wind down the year.
Good morning, Paul.
What do you do? Go fishing or fly a kite for the rest of the summer?
I have a lengthy honey-do list from the missus, and but I also I'm happy to say the school is sending me to Guam for 3 weeks. 3 weeks from today, actually.
Ooh, you're not going to go on the. You're not going to go on the. How do you get there? Do you fly in the interior or do you land at the beach? Because I'm worried about if you land in the beach, it might tip over.
That's what Congressman Johnson tells me. We're flying out of Jackson, and it's going to be like a 16-hour-long flight from Atlanta once we get there to Seoul, South Korea, and then 4 hours to Guam. And I'm like B.A. Baracus from the A-Team. I'm one of these guys. I don't mind flying. It's just the idea of being in a metal tube for 16 hours. If somebody can take a baseball bat to my head and put me out for a few hours, that'd be great.
You need some sedatives. You're going to have some sedatives there. But as far as the congressman's concerned, there are so many dumb things people have said in the history of both chambers. But, I mean, if you're trying to pick the top 10, that's got to be in the top 10. And in all of the sound bites that I have, that's number one.
Yeah, no, that was amazing. And if you watch the video,
the video is precious, man. You watch it.
You know, his staff tried to spin it that he was just cracking a joke. He is dead serious.
Oh, yes, he is serious. He is serious to the point now. And if folks haven't seen this, go to Hank Johnson. I did have the name right?
Right, yeah.
Hank Johnson, Congressman Hank Johnson, tipping Guam. And do that on YouTube. And if you don't laugh at this at one point and then worry about the people he represents at the other, there's something wrong with you. But there are these generals there on the desk that he's asking the questions to. And, I mean, they are fully celebrated in awards and badges and patches. I mean, these guys are up in the upper ranks. And they tried to not either say, are you crazy as hell, or laugh one way or the other. But he said, now, if you're going to move all these people there, are you not worried about them putting that many people on that area, tipping the island? And you remember the response?
Yeah, no,
the response was very, very,
matter of fact, sir. We're reasonably certain that the island is going to be just fine. By the way, the base that was being established, I think what they were doing was they were redeploying Marines from Okinawa to Guam, and actually that's one of the places I think that we'll be visiting on this trip.
What is the political condition there now as far as Guam is concerned?
It's an American territory.
Yeah.
It's unincorporated, so it's everything is as it would be here in the United States. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine who went on the previous trip over there told me it was probably one of the most Americanized places she's ever been to. Heavy military presence.
Safety? What does safety look like?
Safety, from what I understand, is safe. You just take the same reasonable precautions that you would. And it's supposed to be sort of like as I understand it, sort of like a clone of Hawaii in the sense that it's a big tourist area, but not so much for Americans. Americans don't go there just because it's so far away. Even though it's part of the United States, it's a honeymoon destination for people like from Korea and Japan. And it's supposed to be really absolutely beautiful. We were originally hoping to be there for the anniversary of the liberation of the islands from the Japanese, but unfortunately the prices were just off the charts expensive, so we moved the trip back into May and June. But they are evidently looking for statehood. There's some people talking about statehood there, but the problem is that the island has a population about the size of the city of Jackson. And so I don't think that they would be a viable candidate for that reason. But there is another territory.
If they voted for a Democrat, they would be. They'll take anything.
But if you look at the map, Guam is the southernmost island of the Mariana Chain, and there's another American territory called the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. And maybe if they join together and we're able to submit a joint proposal for statehood. Maybe. I don't know. I think maybe they're.
I didn't realize the population was that little.
Yeah, no, it's only about 160 or 170,000,
Wow.
I think.
So, is our military there? How many people do we have there?
That is a great question. I know we have two major bases there. The big base is Anderson Air Force Base, which is located on the northeastern side of the island. And then they've got this Marine base that was established a short time ago. There might be a naval facility there because I know that we were supposed to go last year. And 5 days before we were supposed to go, a Category 4 typhoon hit the island. Actually, I think it had made it to Category 5 just before hitting the island. Wow. And, 80% of the island was without power. There were 10-hour lines for gasoline. All the stores had been wiped out of food. We just, in good conscience, could not go last year. So we're doing it this year instead.
Well, good luck and partake in the food. I'm sure you will, and have a good time. And
Absolutely.
Enjoy it.
Thank you.
You're safer in the airplane than you are in a vehicle, especially if you try to drive the vehicle there. It's not going to work. One of the headlines out there, and I want to get to the Israeli thing too.
Sure.
One of the headlines out there that it just shows these people are encroaching and playing chess, making minor moves that nobody pays attention to. We talked about in some executive orders here and there, codified in some way that illegals can vote. And then there was this GOP governor, who was Governor Abbott in Texas, found this out, and he was absolutely alarmed that the Biden administration had a proposal for the Air National Guard and Space Force. I think it was the Air National Guard, but it was the National Guard for sure, one of them, basically saying that the governors would lose power when they couldn't actually call them. I don't know if you've seen this.
No, I have not seen this.
So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was one of the things that apparently there is a proposal out there that if Tate Reeves wanted to call the National Guard out for something, if it wasn't to the point where the Biden administration thought it was necessary, then they could overrule it.
No, I had not seen that, and I thought.
How do you take your marketing from good
I'm
to?
sorry, that was intrusion there.
No, it's quite all right. No, I don't see how they can. I don't see how they can do that. I know that under unique circumstances, that the president can nationalize the National Guard. For example, sending troops over to Iraq, or even here in Mississippi in 1962. In order to get Meredith enrolled over at Ole Miss, but that just strikes me as an overreach of the power as commander-in-chief.
Every day.
Essentially, the National Guard is the state militia. It would seem to me that the governor would be the one to be able to make that call. If there was a storm that hit the coast and we needed the Guard to go down there and keep order down in Gulfport and Biloxi, the governor could be conceivably stopped by the president from doing so. It strikes me as crazy.
It's one of the things you can read when you get off today and look at get an update on that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, Congressman Ezell was in the news, of course, being attacked by these people. He should file suit against them as far as in Congress over the Israeli funding. We had some news this week and during the weekend talking about maybe a truce.
Right.
And then the Israelis didn't see it that way. Can you bring us up to date on what's going on?
Yeah, no, as a matter of fact, there was a report of a ceasefire. Evidently, Israel did not agree to it. It was a ceasefire deal. It was reported actually yesterday in a British newspaper, I believe, called The Independent. And it said that there would be a 3-phase plan that would each be 42 days per phase. And it was a no-win deal for Israel. Phase 1 would include a temporary cessation of military operations by both sides as Israeli forces withdrew to the eastern part of Gaza away from the cities. After 3 days, Israel would withdraw from strongholds in northern Gaza and totally dismantle military sites and installations in the area. After 22 days, and we're still in phase 1, half of the living captives would be released, and Israel would withdraw from central Gaza.
There. And by the way, there are some dead captives, too, that they finally came they were honest about. We'll talk more about this when we come back. All right. Continue with what you're talking about as far as the current status here, because it's a mess.
Yeah, no, Israel has moved into Rafah. It's a limited move. It's something that, the Biden administration had warned Israel not to go into Rafah, but Israel is staying out, it looks like, of the city center itself. And what it's done is it's sort of done a little flanking, and it has captured the main border crossing between Egyptian Sinai and Gaza. And there's a peace proposal on the table, but the Israelis didn't like it to start with, and then apparently the peace proposal that Hamas accepted is a watered-down version of an earlier peace proposal. And when I say watered down, I think what I mean is to Israel's detriment. It's supposed to be, the plan is a three-phase plan. Each phase of the plan is about 42 days long. In the first phase, there would be a temporary ceasefire, a temporary cessation of operations by both sides, and Israeli forces would withdraw to eastern Gaza away from the cities. And after 3 days, Israel would withdraw from strongholds in northern Gaza and totally dismantle its military sites and installations in that area. After 22 days, again, we're about halfway through phase one, half of the living, as you pointed out, the living captives would be released, and Israel would withdraw from central Gaza. And then at the end of the period, Israel would totally withdraw from Gaza. All of this would be given basically for the release of 33 Israeli captives, dead or alive, including women, children under 19 who are not soldiers, those over 50, and they would be released on the Israeli side. The Israelis would be releasing an untold number of Palestinians. One estimate said that it would be swapping about 30 Palestinians for every Israeli freed. And keep in mind that the people that are being freed by Hamas are innocent civilians, and the people that they are trying to get released are in many cases convicted terrorists guilty of, acts in Israel.
Professor, physically, because Gaza's not that large of an area, how deep are they into, how much control do they have of the entire strip there, or is it limited, or is it just the tunnels now that they haven't gone through?
Yeah, no, Rafah is still in Hamas control, and it's estimated, I think, to be about, let me think now, I think it's about 12,000 fighters still there. And Israel says that they've destroyed about 18 to 20 of the 24 brigades that Hamas had in the area. The tunnels are still a problem. There are some isolated pockets. Israel looks like they've got effective control of northern Gaza, of sort of limited control of central Gaza, and they're beginning to assert their control over southern Gaza. The Biden administration's position is that they didn't want to see Israel make a move until there was a plan to get the refugees out of Gaza and start moving them back towards northern Gaza. I should say Rafah, to northern Gaza. And Israel has set up a few escape routes. One of them is along the coast, but unfortunately, you're asking people in a small space. Remember, Gaza is only about 20 miles long by about 7 miles at its widest wide. You're asking 1 million people to possibly have to move, en masse up the coast to a place that's basically been bombed into rubble. So you're just sort of reshuffling the problem. But at the same time, this could end tomorrow if Hamas would just stop using people as human shields. They are hiding behind these people.
They're in hospitals, they're in schools, they're in places like that.
And Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, had actually issued a statement about a month and a half ago where he said that he hoped that Israel would come in and they would kill those people because it helps them in terms of propaganda.
Everything has changed. Everything, the entire narrative on war has changed. We've taken snowflakes to war where people don't understand what war is. Yeah. In this particular case, you have a monster sitting right across from you in an imaginary line in Hamas or in Gaza, and that monster has attacked you before.
Yeah.
And the rules of war, certainly the second and third and fourth time, if you haven't adhered to it on the first time, is you either kill the monster, decapitate it, or you beat it to an inch of its life so it doesn't come back.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, Paul. If Israel lets Hamas survive because of international pressure, this is like getting cancer surgery done, but only getting half of it done, and leaving the cancer in you so it can metastasize again and come back and kill you.
Yeah, and you don't stop saying, well, you've been too successful on this one. You don't do that. I mean, it's just a fact of life there, and you have people in this country, certainly a new generation says, oh, look at the numbers. You've killed more Palestinians. It's not equal now. Stupid. Plus the entire narrative in the political world. Jake Tapper had an interview. Let me see if I can play this, because this is interesting. And it has to do with our politics. Are they reshaping because of this, because of Trump, and because of the reality of this war, and because you're basically setting the stage for saying in the future we're cultivating a younger generation who's hearing this or participating in it, and forget about African Americans. Now the racism is going to be against Jews, and we thought we had passed both of those.
Politico has a story out this morning noting that a lot of the multimillionaires and billionaires funding the most explicitly anti-Israel groups, ones that think Israel has no right to exist, that are active on campuses, that these groups are funded by big Biden donors, the Pritzkers, the
now
Gateses,
think about that.
George Soros, David Rockefeller Jr. Should they stop funding these groups? Are they causing unrest for the American people?
Well, let me say this. I think that everybody, as the president has said, needs to kind of get focused in on the very core principles of what our Constitution allows and what our Constitution protects.
Answering the question.
And that is this. Everybody has a right to protest, but they have to protest peacefully.
When the same people who are going, can you imagine that as far as racism in the African American community? If the biggest racist out there were given to the Joe Biden administration, then it would be a story.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
No, and look, the guy who was just on, I don't know who the guy who wasn't the reporter.
I don't either.
But I mean, he's right. They do have a right to protest. But the thing is, though, when you are taking over, the main quad in the middle of campus, and you're essentially erecting, a community there of tents. By the way, all the tents look exactly the same and look brand new.
So do the placards.
Right.
So do the buses.
Yeah, and then you storm an administration building and you take it over and you chain yourself inside and you are resisting the police. You know, this has crossed the line. This is no longer peaceful protest. Peaceful protest to me is, people, 1, 2, 3, 4, we don't want your stupid war, holding placards in their hands. So, but you can still get through. When you are physically blocking people from getting to the classes that they paid for to take, and you are just doing things like blocking the entrance to the Holland Tunnel in New York, or you're blocking people from being able to drive over the Bay Bridge in San Francisco, you have passed a line. This is caving into disorder, and the government really needs to do something about it. I have a feeling, Paul, that this is going to come back and bite Democrats on the posterior in November because people are getting tired of this.
Well, I agree, and I think we're going to see a tremendous large vote. What worries me is the vote is not enough to count all the illegals in there, and somehow, some way, that they'll count the illegals, and Joe Biden's going to be in for another 4 years.
Something we didn't.
What's going to happen to this country if that happens?
For Joe Biden for another 4 years?
We wake up Wednesday morning, and we find out when we go to bed on a Tuesday night that apparently the winner, they're calling the winner, is Joe Biden.
Oh, good Lord. I can't even begin to imagine. But I will say this. Get ready to say the words President Harris. There's no way he's going to make it, in my opinion. I mean, just the stress of the job and the actuarial table suggest that he won't be able, that he'll have to be replaced. If, I'm not saying that he would die, but I think he'll get to a point where he just simply can't handle the job. And look, I'm not wishing anything bad to happen to the guy, but at the same time, I'm worried for the country, and I can't right now. Things that I want to buy cost 20 to 50% more than they did. I'm at a point now where I want to buy a house, but I can't. people are being allowed into this country without being vetted, which is, I think, a slap in the face to the legal aliens who did it the right way.
I'm so surprised to hear you say that, sir, because I thought Bidenomics was a good thing. Not at all.
No,
not at all.
No.
Yeah, well, let's take it this way. If you just go back and rewind a year and just look at the features and his speech and everything else, then you project that out to another year in advance, how much he's declined in that 1 year. He'll never make it.
Yeah.
Never make it. Glenn, you are a superstar. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Safe trip to Guam.